In this lecture, we are going to discuss the basics of columns and struts and the basics of Euler's theory. So, first we'll start with what is column and what is strut. So, any member subjected to axial compressive load is called as column or strut. But the difference is when the member is vertical, then it is called as column. When it is with some inclination, or if the member is laid in the horizontal direction, then it is called as strut. So, when the member is loaded in the vertical direction, then it is called as a column. Okay. So, in columns, mostly in materials, the failure depends on the cross section and the material properties. But in columns, it is also depends on the length, because when the length is increased, the column may fail due to buckling. In columns, there are three equilibrium conditions are there, just like the rigid body. The first condition is stable one. So here, if an axial load is applied to a column and the column returns to its original position, then it is called as stable equilibrium. Then the second one is neutral equilibrium. So when I am increasing the load, and at some point of time, what will happen is the deflection will remain. So that load is known as critical load or crippling load or the buckling load. So here this crippling load is very important, because to predict the failure of the column, we have to calculate the crippling load. Further, if we increase the applied load, then the column will fail. That condition is called as unstable equilibrium. Okay. So the Euler theory is used for calculation of the crimping loads. So before going to the Euler's theory, these 6 assumptions have to be considered. So the first assumption considered for Euler's equation is the column is very long in proportion to its cross-sectional dimension. So comparing with the cross-sectional dimensions of the column, the length is very high. Then the second one is the column is initially straight and the compressive load is applied axially. So initially the column will be straight and the compressive load is applied exactly on the center line. Then the third assumption is the material of the column is elastic, homogeneous and isotropic. So the material of the column is elastic, homogeneous and isotropic. Then the fourth assumption is the effect of direct stress is very small in comparison with the bending stress, because when the crimping load is applied, the bending will be like this. Okay, so the buckling will occur like this. So when it deflects like this, then the bending load is applied in this direction. And in columns, comparing with the compressive load, the bending load's magnitude is very high. Then the fifth assumption is column shall fail by buckling alone. So in some cases the column may fail by considering the buckling alone without any effect on the compression. Then the sixth assumption is effect of self weight of column is negligible. Okay, so the self weight of the column is negligible when you consider the Euler's theory. So these are all some examples for buckling failure. So here you can see that the failure occurred like this. Okay, so this is called as buckling failure. So this failure is not because of the compressive load, this is because of the bending load acting in this direction. So now we'll move into the Euler's theory. So this is the crippling load formula by considering the Euler's theory. PE is equal to pi square EI divided by LE square. So here E is the Young's modulus of the material, I is the moment of inertia of the cross section, and LE is the equivalent length. So this LE depends on the 4 conditions. The first condition is both ends are fixed, both ends are hinged. So when the both ends are hinged, then the equivalent length is equal to same as the length of the column. When one end is fixed and other end is left free, you can see that here this end is fixed and other end is left free. Left free means it can move in any direction. So in that case, the equivalent length is considered as the 2 times of the length of the column. And the third one is both the ends are fixed. So here if you see that both the ends are fixed. Okay, so when the ends are fixed, then the equivalent length is half of its original length. The final one is one end is fixed and other is hinged. So when one end is fixed and other end is hinged, then the equivalent length is equal to LE is equal to L divided by root 2. So this crippling load depends on the Young's modulus of the material, the moment of inertia of the cross section, and the equivalent length. So this equivalent length depends on the length as well as the end condition. So it varies for hinged, fixed and free end conditions. Okay, so this is the equation for Euler's crippling load. So this equation has some drawbacks. The first drawback is deflection occurs before the crippling load is applied, because when the load is applied, in a practical case, all these 6 assumptions are not perfectly verified. Okay, so when any one of the assumptions are not matching, then what will happen is the material will start to bend before the crippling load. Okay, so that is the drawback of the Euler's equation. And when the deflection is occurs, then the bending moment causes the failure before the crippling load, because before the crippling load the deflection is start to occur, and because of the deflection the bending moment will occur, and that bending moment will create a bending stress, and because of that the material will fail before it reaches the crippling load. So the conclusion from these 2 points is, by considering the crippling load alone we cannot check the safety of the beam, or otherwise we cannot predict the failure load. So we have to move into the critical stress calculation. So this is the equation for critical stress. So sigma C is equal to load by area. So stress is equal to load by area. So here the load is the crippling load. So PE, as we discussed earlier, it is pi square EI divided by LE square, and this I can be written as A into K square. So that is area times the radius of gyration. So this is A into K square. A will get cancelled and I am going to bring the K here. So I will get pi square E divided by LE divided by K the whole square. Okay, so this is the equation for critical stress. So here this LE by K is the slenderness ratio, and this ratio is very important. So remember that LE by K is the slenderness ratio. So here I have plotted a graph between the L by K and the critical stress. Okay, so this ABC denotes the failure. Okay, so here when you consider the point D, then this OD is the yield stress of the material. So which means above this stress then the material will start to deform and it will fail. Okay, so when you consider the yield stress as OD, then the crippling load can be applied only after the E point, because before the E point, if you draw a line like this, then what will happen is, then in between O and E the stress value is maximum. But if you consider a maximum stress, then the material will fail because of the yielding. Okay, so when you consider the point OD, then your L by K should be greater than this E point. So that is the main criteria about the Euler's equation. So for example, if I consider a structural steel of sigma Z 320 megapascal with E is equal to 205 gigapascal, then I can convert this equation like this. I have taken the L by K in the left side. So my L by K is equal to pi into root of E divided by sigma C. So here if I substitute the value of E as 205 gigapascal and sigma C as 320 megapascal, then I will get a slenderness ratio of 80. Okay, so for structural steel, if the slenderness ratio is less than 80, that is if, so for example if this is 80, then Euler's equation cannot be applied for less than 80 when the both ends are hinged. So it can be applied only the slenderness ratio is greater than 80. So that is the main limitation of using Euler's equation. So in this lecture I have discussed the concept of columns and struts and the basics of Euler's theory. In the next lecture, we will solve the problems using Euler's theory.